Good morning. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email. My guest today, Matthew Holman, head of growth at QPilot. Matthew, hey, welcome.
Thanks, Matthew. It's great to be here.
Where are you talking to me from? Utah?
Yep, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, Utah. Any snow yet?
Yes, actually, we've had some snow just the last few days.
Oh,
Pretty awesome.
hot diggity. Here we go. Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're off to the races, man. Fall lasted 2 weeks. Summer went long, and fall was 2 weeks.
Fall was 2 weeks. Yeah, Pacific Northwest, where I am, it went from sort of endless quasi summer because it never gets that hot.
Right.
And then someone flipped the switch and the water started pouring from the sky. And
I was actually in Seattle last week. I was
were
in
you?
Seattle up till Sunday. So we got the first rain that apparently you guys had in a while up there. So
Yeah. First rain and cleared out some of the nasty smoke.
right,
But,
exactly.
hey, fill people in a bit on start on QPilot first, but I also want to talk about the community stuff you're involved in. But
Sure.
just for orientation, what are you up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So QPilot is a B2B SaaS platform tailored for e-commerce companies, which essentially means we make software, specifically subscription software
Yeah.
for e-commerce companies selling physical goods. Our kind of differentiator or elevator pitch is that when you need subscriptions that can see delivery and shipping options, where things can change and it's more flexible at the end use, as well as easier on your operations, we're definitely a great option worth looking at. And as a marketer, for me, a little bit of my story, my journey is, a little over a year ago, I started, we're a small company, we're bootstrapped. So it's not like I'm managing a massive team or anything like that. And I just kind of started feeling a little bit like, man, who do I go to talk to about other marketing ideas and stuff?
Yeah.
And so a couple of my friends we decided just to start doing some breakfasts. And next thing you know, that starts to turn into a group. And then somebody says you should be doing some bigger events, because the way we would do it is just try to be really engaging and helpful and useful, get real tactical.
Yeah.
And a lot of people really love that. So next thing you know, I'm doing events with rooms of 50, 60 people in them. And yeah. And so earlier this year, though, a couple of my other friends were trying to build an e-commerce community. And, the marketing stuff I've been doing was really fun and I love marketing, but e-commerce is also a big passion of mine. And so, I kind of pivoted a little bit and moved some of my group in with them. And we started ShareHouse, which is an e-commerce community. So we do events. We have a Slack channel with over 400 members. We do, very engaged. Like It's the kind of thing where this is the thing that I love, Matthew. It's like, if I have a question, where do you go to ask it?
Yeah.
And you can Google stuff. You can look at YouTube. If you have a friend who knows, you ask that friend.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, it's nice to have a group. So you can hop onto our Slack and just say, hey, what's a good 3PL in Kansas City? Like who's doing Amazon well? And, over here, anybody ever work with this? And you get tons of responses and advice and introductions and from other people that are doing it or know all about it. So that's kind of the intent and spirit of it, is to be really helpful. And so, that's a lot of what I'm doing, is managing those types of things. And I love education as well. So a lot of what we do at QPilot is education and content focused to try to help people figure out subscriptions.
A whole bunch. We're going to spend.
Yeah, that was a lot.
No. We're going to spend some time unpacking all of them because they're all fascinating avenues to go down. I did want to go back to QPilot for just a second. Do I have it right that the essential proposition is if you're already selling widgets, QPilot will help you do subscription to widget sales?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. You already said Amazon, so you broke the ice. I'm going to say, kind of like the bag of mixed nuts that shows up every month to annoy my wife from Amazon.
Exactly.
One of the things, it's a sidebar, but it's actually legit entry point to talk about QPilot a bit. As a software guy, I find myself in conversations with with ordinary people saying, you know what, time is actually a booger to handle. Time and calendars and recurrence. Right. They're like, oh, it's easy. I'm like, no, it's actually not. It's actually really, really complicated. Like, who designed this? Some Roman emperor? So you help handle that, right?
It really is. I mean, if you think about, without getting too in the weeds on it, most order management systems, so if you're doing Shopify or even a point of sale system at retail, they do the transaction right then.
Yeah.
They don't have to think about it or wait. They do the transaction.
Yeah.
You either have the inventory or you don't.
Yeah.
you figure out shipping right then or there. It all happens right there.
Yeah.
And subscriptions are hard because it's something that's happening a month from now, 6 months from now, maybe somebody's planning something 2 years in the future.
Yes.
So you have to have a system that can think into the future and
Yes.
be able to change and be flexible. And it's actually more complicated than you would think. The reason a lot of people have subscriptions that are really inflexible is not because, well, most brands don't want to be inflexible. It's because it's hard to do that. And so that's kind of like, yeah, it's very difficult to implement something like that. So that's kind of the mission behind what we're doing, is making things more flexible, giving merchants more control. And there's a lot of development and product features that go into making that seem easy.
Well, and there's an artificial economy that you probably bump up against if you're doing recurring subscription of digital stuff. You don't have to worry about, inventory. Do we have it on the shelves? Like, oh, make more bits. That wasn't that complicated. Yes, it was. But
Yeah.
when it's peanuts,
It's just about access. With digital, it's I have this stuff listed. And even if I'm rolling something out new, I need to make sure I've got like an email or an account where you go to get your stuff, you get it in the text. But it's really just about the access and the communication. If there's a physical good that's getting shipped, it's like, I have to plan that inventory out in the future. I have to make sure that schedule's there. What happens if you want to move it up or move it back?
Right.
What happens if you're going to be on vacation in Colorado for a month? Like, am I going to care? Can I make it so that it shifts or adjusts? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's one of those things I joke about a lot with Matthew, that like, if you've done it, how hard it is. And until you've done it, it's one of those things, like, until you've actually done it, it's really hard to imagine how complicated it is.
Yeah, it sounds super simple. So, customers that jump on board and work with QPilot, they're coming from Shopify stores. They might be doing their own.
WooCommerce is where we cut our teeth, and moving into Shopify now. Yeah. So,
and doing Shopify.
And yep, absolutely. Hoping to move upstream some bigger. We really like some of the more complicated issues with B2B and a lot of other aspects, which is kind of how our platform's built. So we're going to be moving into some other verticals as well.
How long have you been at this?
The product itself has been around for about 5 years. Our founder made it several times as one-offs and then decided, hey, this is a SaaS opportunity. And I joined about 2 years ago as co-founder to lead marketing and growth.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a great niche, in that there's only going to be, I think there's only going to be more of this. Is
Absolutely.
Subscription in general on the rise?
100%. Yeah. There's certainly a lot of subscription fatigue with streaming platforms and some things like that. But the idea, I think, QPilot's not the only company that's innovating in e-commerce and delivery and customer experience, right? Like, there's obviously a lot of people that are working on that. And so I think it's just getting better and more improved. And I think as that continues to improve, you're just going to see more and more adoption. I think a really good example is fresh food delivery. A couple of years ago, the idea that you would actually have somebody drop off fresh food at your house was just totally foreign to everybody. And even though it happens a lot now, it's still just a drop on the bucket. It's just still a small amount. And usually it's just big companies like Walmart that are doing it well, but now you're seeing all these smaller brands, fresh kombucha to your door like twice a week. And as that continues to innovate, right? We're just talking about more and more companies wanting to create a better end user delivery experience. You can order it online, get it same day, get it within the hour. That's just continuing to roll out. And subscriptions can be a big part of that, because if I'm selling you fresh food delivery once a week, I'd love to have you on a subscription, because then I get all this other extra kind of hooks into the customer and being able to offer other value as well.
Yeah. Interesting. I had a conversation with another guest just a couple of days ago. And she's marketing agency, and the client of hers that we ended up talking about a bit wasn't as a farm with a cooperative share agreement, a CSA, which, subscription for carrots, basically. Right. And some of the challenges, I guess in that case, you're like, bring me a box. I don't know exactly what's going to be in it, but sign me up for the box.
Right.
But it's still fundamentally that sort of pre-commit thing, which helps the farmer and probably helps
Absolutely.
the cook in that case. What's been the biggest surprise in the last couple of years as you've learned the space and grown the company?
That's a good question. From the actual business owner marketing side, it has been, really interesting trying to, create, go-to-market product from a marketing side of things. Subscriptions is something I think everybody would like to do because they like the recurring revenue, but there's always other things that are, and not everybody does them, but people that feel like it might be a good fit. But it's often far down the list on priorities, right? You have your Facebook ad problems, your inventory sourcing problems, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's been a little bit tricky, trying to figure out how you, of course, like think like any business, trying to figure out how you stay top of mind, get people to see you, differentiate. But I think within the space itself, what's surprising is just how many entrepreneurs are out there like innovating around something. I was just talking to somebody yesterday in Canada selling vape products, and they're doing local same day delivery. And like nobody else is doing that. That's how they're innovating. The CEO himself will go out and do deliveries if the other drivers are busy. It's like, they're not necessarily huge, but they're doing a few hundred orders a week, right? And so that's significant. And so thinking about all these different businesses that are just doing something a little bit different. It's pet food with a vet where they survey your dog and give you personalized like recommendations like that. I think that kind of like engagement and personalization it's just starting. And I think it's going to be incredible to see where we are 2 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been around e-commerce for a lot longer than I probably should have. Like try mid 90s. When we had to build that stuff from scratch and rubber bands and stuff like that. And what's the phrase from Newton? If I've seen farther, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. Like
Right.
we keep building up the starting point. So if
Right.
if you're doing e-commerce now, you're like, I want to sell fill in the blanks bait. Okie dokie, you're not starting with Notepad
Right.
and an HTML page and go
Right.
from there. You're going to go to WooCommerce, Shopify, something like that, and go, okay, that part's done. Yeah. Oh, subscriptions. Okay, you guys, that part's done.
Right.
Now, what can I do on top of that makes it better, different, faster?
Absolutely.
Yeah, in innovation on top of the shoulders of all of those giants. I do want to ask you a question now, and this is particularly germane to what you're doing at QPilot. We're in the B2B space as well. Couple of things I'm involved in B2B space as well. I find it really hard to get through the blast screens to even converse with customers. Drives me crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm one of them, right? I've got people reaching out to me. I'm like, oh, would you stop emailing me, right? I don't have one of those. And
Right.
I'm sometimes baffled at the traction challenge.
It's incredible. And really, it's been an interesting journey for us because what has ended up happening is we've tried a lot of direct outreach ads and other things last year. And, and ultimately we've come back to what is actually my strength, which is content and education. So for us, we're just trying to figure out how can we stay top of mind, be helpful, just be there so that when somebody's like indicates just a little bit more interest, they know that they can come talk to us and that we can help them figure out. Right. So that's one of the reasons I like that, but it does take a lot of time and saturation to do that. Right. Like I had another call yesterday with somebody who said he's been following me on LinkedIn for a while and he's just really appreciated my content and wanted to learn more about how he can do better at subscriptions with his business.
Nice.
Or with his CBD company. But me, he's never liked to post. Right. Like the moment he liked to post is when he commented he wanted to talk. And so you have all these people that you just don't know that they're lurking, they're watching, they're paying attention. We will regularly get people that come in, say like, so since we're software, we'll regularly get a developer who comes in, looks at our docs or is looking at our page, maybe for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And then suddenly somebody from the company comes in, registers, installs, and starts using the product.
Wow.
All within like an hour. And we're just like,
yeah.
So the signals is sometimes hard, right?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to sell. It's not like I've got this really long sale. Like if we do outbound and we have a demo process, yes, that can sometimes take a long time too. But those ones can be also equally as frustrating. I could have the most incredible call where perfect fit. They seem like they're a perfect fit for us.
Yeah.
Nothing for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't respond to any of, and I try not to be too naggy, right? Like I'm sending an email every couple of weeks just to like, see what's going on, bring up some of these points, try not to be too annoying. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're ready to go. Like, let's do the install. We want to happen within the next blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
No, you didn't want to tip me off 2 weeks ago that you're about ready to, anyway, but that's just the way it is. That's the way it is in B2Bs. People are going to do it on their own timing, and you have to
Yeah.
figure out, and every niche is a little bit different, or industry is a little different. You just have to figure out how your customers are interacting with you and how you can be helpful, and
Yeah.
kind of leave
Yeah.
it at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a recursive topic to bring up, but one of the reasons that I spend the time on this podcast
Right.
is I like the email space. I think it's actually surprisingly innovative. I noticed like what wasn't talked about as much. Oh, email, that's old. I'm like, maybe I could talk with people who are doing some of the really cool stuff in this space and share those conversations with other people. And I don't actually know what effect it's having. I honest to God don't sometimes. Like,
It's really hard. It's hard to tell, but I think can be really useful. It's helpful. I will say one of my favorite things I hear all the time is that email is dead. I just laugh.
yeah,
Even in e-commerce,
yeah,
like, tech, even within e-commerce, you'd be surprised to see how many people are not texting. They're still just doing email. They're reliant on it. It works.
yeah.
Anyway, it always makes me laugh.
Well, so okay, we agree on that, but let's flip it around, look in the mirror. Why is it such a common knee-jerk thing to for someone to say, "Oh, email's dead"? Like, where does that come?
So it's just hot takes. It's like, for me, I feel like a lot of times, like, there's ways to craft social media posts so that they're engaging, right? It's all about the hook. And so you say email is dead. That's your hot take,
That's
trying to get people to be engaging and stuff. And it's also a good way to juxtapose new products or features ideas. I think,
yeah,
you, the people that I follow that are really, I think, are pretty smart and reasonable, is like, email is just a part of what you should be doing, right? Like,
yep,
in fact, we did one of my marketing events earlier this year, was a company called Via, and they do SMS for e-commerce brands. And they were showing that the best actually isn't email or text, it's email and text together. When you do those two together, you get the best result, right? So it's another tool you should be using and leveraging, especially for things like abandoned cart and newsletters and offers. But anyway, yeah, it's just kind of funny when people say that.
Well, it's it's highways and railroads. If you want a metaphor for better or worse, email is kind of still the open road communication
Right.
channel, and still doesn't have a big cost burden, and critically, it doesn't have a gatekeeper.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So
And
all of
yep.
those things add up. Well, I have had a number of conversations where we ended up focused on texting and how that's sort of finding its own feet as a channel and a complementary one. Does texting factor in the QPilot platform? Is that part?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Okay.
we can, because of the way our API and webhooks work, you can put us into text,
Mhm.
chat bots. You could even put us into Slack if you wanted to. In fact, our old website has a widget of somebody texting to like change their order of hops for a yeah, I want to get this product now
Yeah.
instead, and it
Yeah.
shows that kind of interaction. That's
Yeah.
actually, we've been able to do that for several years. It's kind of,
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Lots of channels to manage. Switch gears and talk about the community work, what's grown into a share house.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for me, I've always found that community is the most useful place for me to go to for resources, whether I'm in e-commerce or marketing communities. And so it's something I've always been really passionate about. I kind of felt like I fell backwards into doing it.
Yeah.
And I do love kind of creating that engagement, the education. And for me, for QPilot, it's certainly useful to get myself in front of more and more people in the space, right?
Sure.
I'm the subscription guy that does cool e-commerce events, right? And so it has definitely opened some doors that I wouldn't have gotten to, or would have been a lot harder to get into with some really, really good customers and
Yeah.
prospective customers at this point. Because we're not on the interesting thing is, with not being on Shopify, there's a limitation with how much marketing you can do, right? Because you have to be really targeted with WooCommerce. The thing, Shopify is everywhere. Those community, so within our ShareHouse community, I'd say like 90% of the people that are on Shopify. So, so that's one of the reasons that, like, from a selfish standpoint, I guess, is what's motivating me to do it. Is it's good for exposure. It's good to get me more in front of people, and I think long term it'll be good for QPilot.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's something that I just enjoy. I love doing. So
Yeah.
the idea is, we did an Amazon event Tuesday. I don't make money off Amazon. Nothing QPilot does has anything to do with Amazon, but it was just a great event bringing in speakers, letting people know about it. We had over 100 people come out and
wow.
learn, and had a little half day session. So yeah, like that kind of thing. It's just really, I mean, it's a lot of work at times, but it is something that I just love doing. Yeah. I have a partner that helps me do it. She's pretty incredible. Madeline Van Hoff. She's
You
just
said you run a Slack channel as well
yeah. There you go.
for that
So
community. Yeah. Community management's its own art form, because there are human beings involved usually
right.
in communities, and they do some of the goofiest, most unpredictable stuff. And you got to figure out how to go,
Yep.
This is okay. This is not
Right.
okay. And yeah, I, I salute you. Not everybody can manage that.
So far it's been okay. I've been in other ones where it gets pretty bad, and
Yeah.
or people start to stop to see value, or it's all spam.
Yeah.
Ours has been pretty good. We occasionally get somebody who comes in and there's just like, hey, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Come talk to us.
Yeah.
And there's usually crickets. The people that are coming in there trying to offer help and or ask for help are the ones who see the most immediate response. So
Interesting.
it's only very rarely where I have to say, and it's usually I try to just be helpful. It's like, hey, if you actually phrase this more like this is the type of people we can help and what we do to help,
Right.
instead of just saying,
We-
we're awesome at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an very active Slack channel called Email Geeks.
Okay.
For guess what? Email gigs. And I'm a member. I don't spend a lot of time on it, but when I go there, you see the stream of people introducing, you see the missteps. I made a misstep once and I got smacked by the administrator. Like, oh, okay. I guess you got to kind of learn the rules for this new one. It's not like when you walk in a room, right? You see who's talking to who, how they're comporting themselves, and so on. You've got some cues. Slack group, the social cues are pretty thin on the ground, so it takes a while. Yeah, room for growth there. Back to Amazon for a second. This is intriguing to me because there's such a looming presence for almost any field that's selling stuff.
Right.
And as you said, you don't. QPilot doesn't necessarily get anything out of Amazon. At the same time, boy, oh boy, do we all learn from them.
I mean, as you're saying, that's exactly where I would like. Yeah. They're educating people on what things are. And in many ways, I actually get to say, hey, we have a better subscribe and save experience than Amazon does. So your customers are going to love that.
Nice.
But yeah, they're teaching people, they launched B2B subscriptions earlier this year. Right. Yeah. So they're leading the way in a lot of the innovation and implementation. And I think how people are seeing delivery is what's shaping a lot of this. The idea that people are open to getting something for same day fresh food or next day with a food order is because Amazon has taught them that this can go well if it's done right.
Can go well if it's done right. Yeah, that's true. They've almost single-handedly started connecting the household to a more digital, rhythm, cadence, something like that. I live a few miles out of town in a very rural spot, and a year ago the Amazon Prime truck started roving around. I'm like, wow, this is real. Amazon Prime truck in my neighborhood. Everywhere. And then you go through Seattle. You were just in Seattle.
Yeah.
Fleets of Amazon Prime vehicles zooming down the road, kind of. Yeah. It's been something to watch. I was a very early Amazon subscriber. I think my ID is almost 25 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Well, because they started, they're like, books, sign me up, right? Okay, books, is that what you sell? Sign me up. Great, no problem. Back when we were all petrified about entering our credit card in web forms. You said you'd pivoted, Sharehouse started in sort of marketing, broadened to e-commerce. Do you think continued growth for that, or maybe additional sectors, or what?
I think it'll be probably e-commerce for the near future. I don't see it necessarily changing. It might change how we offer it or how we help. We're trying to figure out, should we be doing like smaller groups and connecting people more directly? There's a few other things, but I don't know. Marketing is one of those fun things where I don't necessarily see myself as somebody who should be educating or teaching. And yet when somebody starts asking questions, I find myself answering. So it's something I I do enjoy, but so I might go back to it at some point. I feel like if I can continue to do well with QPilot, I might be able to say I know a little bit about B2B SaaS marketing, but right now I still feel like a total newbie, even though I've been doing it a few years. So anyway,
What look by the time you feel you got it nailed down, the
I'm
ground will
hoping
have
totally.
shifted, right? And yeah, when someone says the way X works is this, I'm always like, yeah, maybe not. I'm not sure we
Right,
know, right?
right,
I think we're trying, continually testing. One of the things I like
totally.
about email folks, like they get that you got to sort of just keep always trying, measuring, testing, refining. It's not like there's a final answer or something like
Absolutely,
that. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, fascinating journey. QPilot itself, 4 or 5 years old. You said
Right.
founder built the first one or two. Are there substantially big markets that you expect to open up, like additional countries or something like
Well,
that?
we're fairly active internationally, but because of the WordPress community. But for us, like the future for QPilot, to kind of geek out on this a little bit, is we talked a little bit about this, but the idea of like the Internet of Things has been around for a long time. This idea, but its adoption has taken, I think, a lot longer than in many ways what people expected, and I think it's going to continue to shift. And I'll give you an example. We've been in talks with a really big company that sells on Salesforce, and they've implemented a subscription program where they know so much about their product that they could just tell you what to do based on where you live and the rainfall you've seen, and they're going to send you the product you need. That was their idea. It's very similar to the Internet of Things. The thing knows better than you do when to replace the filter or what to use, right?
Okay.
What they found was a ton of pushback from people who did
Yeah.
not believe that some big company could tell them how to take care of their thing better than anybody else. And so where I think the future is really going is not total customer control or total machine driven. It's actually something in the middle where there's a mix of people. Some want to trust this. Maybe you believe your car knows when to replace its air filters better, but you don't trust your AC unit because it's really windy where you live. And so it's this idea we're going to have different levels of control. And so what QPilot is, what we're really fascinated by is this idea that we have so much data around change and permutations around and about repeat orders that keep happening, have happened, and that will happen. So like one of the things that we think is really exciting is say like truck fleets, right? So fleets invest millions of dollars into the specific types of products, tires, airs. They have they have sensors all over the truck to track everything of all this data.
Yep.
And so they know like at 30,000 miles, you have to replace this. At 40,000 miles, you have to replace that. Well, what happens when the tires are in New Jersey, but at 30,000 miles, you're in Vegas? What happens, and you need to make that happen. And by the time you end up, you either have to you have to ship the tires out there, which can be incredibly expensive. So for us, we're getting into, and again, I'm going a little down the rabbit hole of getting into the predictive nature of being able to, when something will need to be changed and where it will be, because we see delivery and shipping so much.
Yeah.
We'll be able to tell that tire company weeks in advance, hey, your truck's going to be here. The tire needs to be freighted here, right?
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. So you're really backing into a bit of a digital twin scenario, aren't you?
Mhm.
Wow. Yeah. I, on the note that you touched on about the pushback when, a widget says you're supposed to maintain me, right. Or you're supposed to use this one, not that one. Right. It's very akin to the community boundary thing we were talking about. Like we still want some control. If you said, hey, I've got a helpful suggestion, maybe this model would be better, and I still feel like I'm making the yes, no decision on it, it might go over better. We're going to keep running into this though, because digital twins, AI, predictive analytics, the machines are going to start telling us, right?
You're going to get that notification saying, hey, it's time to change your air filter.
Yeah.
It should be yes or no. The idea that it's just going to be automated out of the box is people aren't going to like that. But the idea that you could opt into that, yes, you've been right so many times. I'm good. Just, you don't need to ask me anymore. Just send me, right? Yeah. Maybe I have a personal assistant that's managing this. The idea that I'm going to go on vacation and I have my shipments that are hitting my address while I'm gone. It'd be nice if something were to telling it, no,
Yeah.
send it to my hotel in Colorado for this thing, let this thing
Right.
hit my garage. It's
Right.
okay. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, and that's what I think is exciting is the idea of how that personalization, that engagement is going to be crafted, whether using email, in-app notifications,
Yeah.
texting.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you can layer that and nuance that, and how people can have that control of whether they're saying yes, no, or I'm going to let you know when I need it. That kind of thing is just really
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It does feel like it does feel like we need to keep groping towards the human interface side of that, because even now it's overwhelming,
Right.
right? Even now it's like, oh man, I'm not keeping track of that. And what do you mean I've got a subscription for? Huh? Like I completely forgot about that. I'm gonna pick on it because it's an obvious example. But did you track the kerfuffle about a month ago with BMW said,
Yes. That's the
yeah,
example I bring up
subscription
with
for
everybody
your
all the time.
e-meters.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Oh yeah.
oops.
Yeah. That's the joke I like to make is like, I don't think they actually talked to anybody to get any real feedback. I feel like that was a very much a top down
Yeah.
directive, make more
Yeah.
money. This is how
Yeah.
we think you can make more money. And the irony is I was talking to somebody else about this who's a huge actually BMW fan. I know they were a Porsche fan. And they said, if Porsche offered me a subscription to talk with one of their engineers every couple of months, like on a Zoom call to ask questions around development and driving and handling,
Yeah.
I would pay 100, 200, whatever dollars just to be able to get
Yeah.
access to that. And that's the thing is like, if you and we literally like thought of that in 30 seconds. It's like how much time should a big company be able to invest in doing research? You could validate that idea so quickly. Like, right, you talk to your existing customers. What are other things we could be offering you or that you're not seeing? Like, we have some of these ideas. Would you want to do this? Would you want to do that? And then you could actually start rolling out beta groups and charge people and see what happens. You know what I mean? And the funny thing too is like I get on this soapbox a lot with brands is they're trying to figure out, oh, I'm going to buy gift products and add them to subscription boxes, or I'm just going to discount things more. And while there are times when I think that can be really useful or applicable, like a lot of times it's like, well, no, do you have a really compelling like founder story? Do people subscribe because they love the influencer or whatever that drove them there? Like what other things could you just do a Zoom call? Could you do a personal newsletter? Could you do
Yeah.
something that from a ROI, a cost standpoint is actually really, really cheap to offer? It's just maybe just a question of time, but the value you'd see from everybody else that would be getting that would just
Yeah.
would love it, right? And so that's how we should be. I think when I talk to a lot of subscription brands, because we do so much like consulting and education, is that it's like, what do your customers like and love, or what are they not getting, or what do they want more from you? Like they're probably telling you already, like, and if not, you should be facilitating that. That's why community is so great. If you don't have a Facebook group for your product, or if you don't have a Facebook group of people that are your type of customer,
Right.
where you could go in there, even if it's not yours, you could just go in there and ask, hey, we're working on this stuff. Does anybody want to try this out? Or does anybody have ideas? You're always going to find people that are going to say like, no, that's a horrible idea. Or yeah, I'll try that. You know what I mean? And then you iterate from there. You start to develop and implement and test it again.
Yeah. 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 That the human side feedback mechanisms, which to be fair, that blast screen problem,
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
it's a factor there. Like we're I'm launching something new with a partner, and I just put out a quick note in an email group, only influencers that I belong to for a number of years. Like, hey, we're looking for beta testers who want to do blah 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 blah. Try to keep it short. And sure enough, half a dozen people like, sounds interesting, sign me up. And a couple of people said, well, just on the description, maybe that's not a good idea what you're doing.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but thanks. I mean, honestly, the sort of
Yeah.
cautionary input was just as useful, and I hadn't really considered how it landed when I phrased it that way. So
Right.
you got to get out there. Um, I envy you having live, because you do face to face as well, right?
Right. Yep.
Live groups for conversations like that. Between pandemic and an office 8 miles out of town, I don't have as many live
Sure.
conversations with people in similar businesses as I used to, absent Zoom. And,
Right.
yeah, there's no substitute for that, really.
There really isn't.
Yeah, there
There really
really
isn't.
isn't. Yeah, and it's fun. I think
It is.
the 2-year lock-in made us realize that it's fun to
Yep.
actually hang out and talk with people. But whatever.
Connect with people. Yep.
Yeah, connect with people. Well, fascinating journey. I suspect the community stuff is gonna run away with you if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, what thoughts about the future of email? My closing question.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I think that we're going to continue to see a disparity between people that invest in personalization and value adding and people that still keep things just very transactional. So the difference that I see is people that just see like, oh, I'm sending you an email letting you know your order's coming versus somebody who's creating an unboxing experience almost with an email when your order notifications happening, right? This idea that you're seeing more engagement even within newsletters, more interesting things. A brand that I love, they do gluten-free bread, and their newsletter is just so incredible because it's always it's recipes about gluten-free stuff, about community and engagement, and if you're gluten-free, if you're trying to live celiac or gluten-free, like that kind of community and that is such a positive thing, and you're getting it from an email from a brand.
From an email.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, that's where I keep seeing like the future is. I think that it's far from dead. People that just see it as a transaction will continue to just get that kind of value out of it. But the brands and the companies that are seeing it as an opportunity, for me, we have a weekly email newsletter called Subscription Prescription, and it's all about just diagnosing and helping you with subscription problems.
Yeah.
And I don't get too crazy or too like fancy with it, but I try to keep it simple and personal,
Yeah.
and people like that.
You
People
right.
like yeah, I read it myself. Yeah. So I think that's where we're going to continue to see a change. People are going to continue to innovate in how they communicate within the email because of personalization and value add they're offering, while everybody else just kind of just lets it just run because it's something that they need or use.
You hit on a very profound tension, for lack of a better word there. In this respect, one definition of personalization, and it tends to be technically skewed definition, is sort of, I've got to give everybody at the other end of that send their particular thing, right? Their, their product, their location, their weather report, something like that. Perfectly valid. We've got a bunch of technology to help do that. But you also articulated a different definition, which is, I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to be me, right? Personalization. You write the thing. I'm betting it's got your voice, what you're passionate about, what you learned last week, etc. And you're not necessarily saying, I've got to do a different version of this for everybody at the other end, right? It's like, it's personal. Oh, there goes that cotton picking Zoom blur. This is the most vexing thing.
Sure.
And
there you go.
That's if that personalization the other way, like I'm going to go ahead and be me. It's called authenticity versus personalization.
Right. That's a good
right. It's like very effective and often forgotten, particularly bigger companies.
Well, and if you think about it too, it's simple. Something simple I've advised is if you're trying to come off as a brand that's fun, then are your emails fun? If you're trying to come off as a little bit edgy or dark, like you should be, like that should be across your communications. Like if you're buttoned up, if you're just serious or professional, like that's fine. Like if it's people are just buying your product because they know it works and that's it, cool. But you know what I mean? Like that's how we should be approaching all of our communications. Like QPilot, we were getting very little feedback on our newsletter. It was a QPilot company driven newsletter, and we decided to pivot. We spun it off as Subscription Prescription, and it's from me instead of being from QPilot. It's from Matt Holman. I'm still the same person writing it, but now it's more personal. It's more authentic. It's personal. It's something relatable. And now people will reply to the email and ask questions, right? They'll engage.
Part of your community, isn't it?
Right. Yep. It is. It definitely is.
It's quite ingenious, and I suspect a whole lot more effective.
Absolutely.
For its end business purpose. But it's got some challenges and burdens. Like if you won the lottery tomorrow, you'd be hard to replace writing that.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's a leap for a brand. You can do this as a small company, but it's a leap for a brand to cede control of company voice to an individual, which is effectively what you're talking about.
But I do think at larger companies, it's easier to replace because a larger company it's not going to be driven by just one person. It's going to be driven by a couple people, maybe a designer here, some researchers. But because I'm in one of my favorite marketing communities is Exit 5 with Dave Gerhardt. And, he works and has worked at and has other marketers that work at really big companies, and they get into this debate, like, how do you see control of that? And
Yeah.
I just think that, a CEO is a lot more likely to relate to a personal letter from somebody who's doing it, even if it's at a Fortune 500 company, as opposed to just the Fortune 500 company talking about
Yeah.
how cool they
Yeah.
are.
In that abstract brand voice with that
Right.
awful stilted prose.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. The example that comes to mind of that, for some reason, I'm not the grocery shopper in our household, but I think the Trader Joe's paper newsletter is flippin' brilliant. Every time I page through that, I'm like, I laugh, I'm delighted.
Right.
I kind of want to go to Trader Joe's, and I know that's the point, but they do a
Right.
great job. Pretty good sized company. They do a great job of keeping a snap in that thing, and I
Absolutely.
love to get behind the scenes. Maybe I'll reach out and say, hey, who writes that? Can I have them on the podcast? Talk about how
Great
the
idea.
heck you keep that voice, right?
Yep. Yep.
Fascinating. Well, we could probably do this all day, Matthew. But I should probably
Absolutely.
bring you up to get back to your day.
Appreciate it. It's been really fun, Matthew.
Yeah. So if someone's interested in QPilot, because everybody's going to subscriptions, right?
Sunday, right?
QPilot.cloud.
We actually just updated to qpilot.com. Yeah. So you can find us at qpilot.com. Yeah.
Did you? Because why?
The .com came up. The guy who was saying he wanted, tens of thousands of dollars for it, came down to an actual normal price. And when we pulled the trigger.
And then you get all that, oh my gosh, do we have all that on our website? Because porting that over is not necessarily trivial either. Cool.
It was good. We were launching a new one, so it was a good time. And then I'm really active on LinkedIn, so I'd love for anybody who's interested.
You got like 6,000 followers. I was like, wow, this guy's got an audience. That's terrific.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Well, share the episode of this conversation when I
will
post it for you. Okay.
I will. I'll have it in my email newsletter as well. Don't worry.
Perfect. All right. My guest has been Matthew Holman from QPilot. Thanks much.
Thank you.